I'm going to talk about Cliff for a little bit. Cliff spent many years working for IBM. At IBM, one of his successes is that he was named, was it Master Inventor?
Yes.
He's a Master Inventor. He has over 60 patents to his name, and eventually started doing training at IBM, and really loved the training piece and the curriculum development piece and designing different training things. He's taught Linux and some other technical things at St. Edward's and some other schools. And this is a presentation that he made for some of the faculty members, I believe, at St. Edward's University. It's on social software and business. And so we decided that this might be a topic that you folks would find interesting. He's also a member of our Toastmasters group, and just as a reminder, our Toastmaster group, which will help you speak in public more comfortably, more ably, meets after Launchpad the first, third, and fifth Fridays of every month. So this is the first Friday. So from 12 to 1 in this room we'll have Toastmasters. All of you are invited to attend. It's lots of fun, and we'll help you in your presentation. So he is also a very strong member of our Toastmaster group, Cliff Spinac.
Thank you. Okay, so primarily what I'm going to be talking about today is mostly how social software is used, again, in the business world. And I believe everybody in the room probably knows about the concepts of basic concepts of social software, and a lot of people refer to it as social media, and we'll talk about that for a few minutes too. In the basically home world, the consumer world, the private world, not the business world. And the key here is that social software started out actually in the business world, moved to the home world, and now it's been moved back into using for business purposes. And a lot of people ask, well, why would I want to use that for work? If this is something about, what, am I going to use Facebook, or am I going to just share my pictures? And well, actually, social software is used today to help increase business and increase the customer as well as the sales representation to the customers and everything involved with producing products and everything today, along with good social software. So with this, what is the definition of social software? So social software is software that includes internet-based tools, because it actually evolved from what was called Web 2.0, where the web became more interactive with web applications. You could basically communicate or work interactively with the web. And it's used to collaborate, communicate, and work with other people in your company, primarily, or with your customers to help them understand the product or build the product or share your information about the products. And one of the underpinnings of social software that became a mantra of social software, let's say, is that there's an old Chinese proverb, and if you look on the web, there's a lot of misquotings that it's from Benjamin Franklin, because everybody likes to think Benjamin Franklin created every quote, but it was really created by a Confucius philosopher, and it's been translated as this basically: tell me and I will forget. So if I give you some information and just talk to you about it, you'll probably forget it. Show me and I may remember. So that's where charts came from, and presenting with charts or pictures and all that. And there's a little bit more chance of remembering it if you see it in the chart or pictures and that kind of figures, whatever. But if you involve me with the creation, then I will understand it better, and then I will almost definitely remember it because I helped create the information. So the idea with social software is not to just give me the information, but help me to collaborate and share the information together. So this is, my talk would normally be an hour or so. I'm trying to reduce it as much as possible. Here's some of the key examples of social software that's used in the business world, and some of them you'll recognize is also used in the consumer world. Many of them got there in the home market or consumer world, and many of them got their start there. So the first three I'll talk about the most in my 15, 20 minutes. So forums are a way to exchange information, ideas with other people out there on the web, and also basically propagate your expertise. Wikis are a way to create and share information when you're building that information together. Blogs are a way to present your ideas outwardly and then let people comment on those logs, those comments, basically. Social bookmarking. So this is one. Now we're starting to get into the area where you may not have seen it, because we're starting to range more into places where you may not see in the home market, let's say, or just the consumer market. Social bookmarking is where I create bookmarks that I need to share with other people on my team, so we all use the same source reference materials on the web, and we don't have to keep just passing them as emails back and forth. We basically keep the same list of reference sources through bookmarks together. And actually, the original name for social bookmarking was dog earing. So I don't know if you remember that from the printing, the books industry is when you used to flip over the page. Okay, so now it's bookmarking is now basically keeping web links. Profiles, well, we all do that in Facebook, and this is where you usually get the most questions about, well, why do I need to create profiles for social software? Well, the idea here is that by me keeping profiles together with all the other people I work with, I could then tap into people's profiles and find out what they're the experts in, and maybe bring those experts together for discussion or help them to work on the product or the information I need to create or gather. So it's using profiles to help join together people. Activities are a newer area of social software, where I actually create activities, basically think of project management. So I could actually assign workloads to a team, work items to a team, and I create that as an activity. I create maybe an optional due date or schedule date, and that kind of information, as well as it can be tracked, the activities of everybody in the team. So we're actually using social software now to be used for actual project management for small or medium projects. Communities are when we try to bring people together, also referred to as groups by some social software, so we have either a common interest, maybe we're all working on the same project together, or maybe we have the same general interest, like we're all working together for social software or Java programming, something like that. Or maybe we're all in the same department, we work together in the department, maybe I need to understand better the people in my department, so I bring them together in a community for my department. Or maybe my company has a community for these are the workers of that company. And I could then tap that community and use their profiles to help figure out who I can actually help me with my project, or who I can ask questions to, or who I need to pull in for more of the work I'm going to be working on. Content is basically text files, pictures, and documents. And that was actually the original concepts of what we refer to as social media. Okay, and I actually didn't define that as that, but social media is actually the media content, the images, the pictures, the documents, the videos that form socialization information. And over the years, it's been stretched to be the actual web applications that host that media, like Facebook. But notice what we're talking about is the overall encompassing area of social software that goes above the media and above the websites that host social media. But today, content in social software in business world is used to actually not only keep track, not only put the documents and the pictures and all that associated with the product development, let's say, up on the web that all of my community can access, but it also keeps an archive as well as keeps version management for me. So not only can I look at this version of that document that is the current version, I can go back and look at previous versions when I'm using it in a business environment. It's much more encompassing than we see with, say, Facebook or something like that. Instant messaging. A lot of people have used instant messaging, whether it be through Facebook or other films, and I'm going to be talking about that for a few minutes too. But we use instant messaging with social software to reach out to the people in my community or to other people out there in my groups. And I use that to basically communicate with them in real time. And I use the profiles to help find those people that I should be communicating with. Social networking, well, that's what we do here with LinkedIn and that kind of thing, is where you where there's software that's specifically involved with finding other people that you need to group with and have the same interests or the same product goals as you do. So let's talk about forums for a few minutes. Forums was one of the first methodologies of social media and social software. And you could think of the easiest way to think of forums is remember the Roman Forum. It's where a bunch of people get together and discuss a topic. This is how I can remember forums versus blogs. So forums are bulletin boards where I keep track of information. I allow members to post a topic. So I'm not really, if I'm the forum owner, I don't necessarily create the topic now. I invite people into a group together and let them create the topics. and then the other members of the group can basically append to that forum topic and put their expertise in it. So think of it as a way of exchanging information, brainstorming, that kind of stuff with our projects with work. So a lot of the areas that you'll see it used with, to make use of this in the business world is for support communities, for examples of making discussions on general product announcements, that kind of thing. Anything where I have to work together with a group and let those people come up with the topics themselves. So I chose an example, a very common example in the industry today is, I just went to the web and grabbed the Apple support community. So a lot of the companies now in the IT world are actually using their forums to help support their products. And it's actually come to the point now where the subject matter experts are there out on the web. They're not really necessarily only the people who work for the company, though the people who work for the company supporting the product are also monitoring these forums. And you'll see there are lots of people talking about a problem, bringing up new topics, and you'll see that these forums on that product base, are actually more encompassing than the actual manuals that you'll find on the company's website or from the company. So that's an example of the iPod Touch I picked. And you could just see that the people are just raising questions, and then everybody's chiming in of how they solve that problem. Wikis are a newer form of social media used in social software. In this example, wikis are used basically to create, think of it as like an online editing for common sharing of information, where we're creating the media together in real time, and people are going in, the people in my group, again, who have access to my group, are in real time actually putting the information into the documentation or whatever I'm using the wiki for. So a common use of wikis, for instance, where again we have several authors now involved. There's a primary wiki owner, but the authors are owning the final document together, in this case an editing web, think of it as a web page that represents a document. And it's used very often to create product documentation now, or joint developed articles, or common education media where there's several people working together to create the education. Actually, I worked on a project where we had several people going to do a class at IBM, where it was a week-long class, but we had 10 different people, each had their little unit they had to create. And the easiest way we found to organize the content and the schedule is by creating a table inside a wiki, and each entry in the table was a different unit that was going to be used in the class. And then the person who owned that unit would then put in his summary blurb and then a link to his final presentation and maybe his final lab too. So this was a good thing because now we could just go in and modify that wiki page, and it ended up creating the final access to the material as well as the schedule for the material. So here's an example of the wiki I pulled from IBM. So it turns out IBM has moved a lot of its online they don't actually use many printed documentations. They went to online documentation for almost all their products about 10 years ago now. And now they've actually gone one step further. They've gone to wikis because they have lots of different authors working on the product documentation for different parts of the documentation. So they actually have them go in and they stage it in a test wiki, and then overnight it gets sent out after testing to the actual product documentation wikis. Okay, so this wiki, for instance, is just an example of the documentation for the product called Connections, which is their social software product. Now, blogs are another one of the earliest forms of social media. So blogs came from the concept of, and it's the name you can see is weblogs, web blogs, right? Blogs. And that was like one of the earliest forms of basically using the web for social media. So it started out as basically being used for online journals, and that's the primary use today. And in this case, with a blog, usually there's an owner of the blog, and he pushes forward the topic to discuss. Okay, so that's the difference. You've got to think again. Forums, we have multiple people creating the topics and opening up a new discussion, while typically the blog, think of it like as someone owns the blog, and he's a journal, it's a journal for him, and he pushes forward a topic that he wants to raise for discussion with the other members of the blog. So blogs tend to be used as inside companies now to provide information about the release of new products, also document what's their schedule, or what the news of the company are. So I went out looking for an example there, and I picked, okay, the Microsoft blog. So this is Microsoft's official Microsoft blog, where they're posting out information about announcements or news for the day, or whatever they want to get out to their customers or business partners. Okay? Now, one of the extensions of blogs that's actually more recent is actually was pulled from the concept of Facebook. Everybody uses the wall on Facebook, maybe? I don't know. Okay. So the Facebook is really, when you're posting on your wall on Facebook, that's referred to as a microblog now in the industry. And what's happening now is some of these social software tool products basically have it that in your profile you have an entry page, a home page, your welcome page for your personal entries and what you're working on. And in there, you can create a microblog. Think of again, as you would with Facebook with the wall, that goes out to anybody who wants to come and watch what you're working on. They get connected to you and they basically see what you put in your microblog. So you don't have to go through all the efforts of actually publishing a blog. Now, collaboration platforms are basically new social software where they integrate a lot of different social software applications together, and they're basically used to go to sell out to companies who want to create intercompany communication methods or help the users collaborate better. So two of them that are out there that are very popular in the software industry today for working inside companies or enterprises is IBM Connections from IBM and Microsoft SharePoint. We always talk about SharePoint. What's that SharePoint? Well, Microsoft SharePoint is a collaboration platform from Microsoft. And what you would find in both of those is many of the things I'm talking about on these different applications that are social software are basically included together and running off of one set of servers. So a major aspect of collaboration platforms is usually they're run within the company, not outside the company, or they're managed from within the cloud for the company, and they're very secure. They're helping the company keep together its management of the information, security, and the communities are all basically, or groups, are all basically within the company itself or their customers. Now, whenever talking about social software, you have to also talk about instant messaging. So a lot of us started out maybe with personal consumer, now called consumer instant messaging. And the first ones actually were AOL instant messaging and Yahoo instant messaging. Those AOL and Yahoo are considered the creators of the concept of instant messaging. Now, after that came Skype, and now it's Microsoft Skype because Microsoft bought them about 2 years ago, so now it's Microsoft Skype. And then came Google Talk also. So these are all methodologies of instant messaging back and forth across the web. But now we need something that how would a business work with instant messaging? You can't necessarily think that I should use AOL or Google Talk or something like to do my business with. And the reason you want to worry about doing that is because those are open instant messaging methodologies where someone could tap into the line and see what you're saying back and forth and get that confidential information. So the big things with business instant messaging or enterprise instant messaging, EIM, is that the information is usually encrypted. So even if you're out at another machine in, say, the Starbucks and you're using instant messaging, if you're using one of the consumer instant messaging, they could be tapping in and seeing everything you're typing. While with an enterprise instant messaging, it's being encrypted. So the other thing is they're usually basically running off servers that are inside the company's firewalls. So here's some examples of business instant messaging. There's Microsoft Skype for Business. There's IBM SameTime, that's their version of it. And for the open source community, the Linux world, there's what's called Java Open Source. XMPP format is the format they use for that, it's called. And the client that's most often used in the open source community, especially in Linux, is called Pigeon. And here's an example of a diagram, a sample shot I found for Microsoft Skype for Business. And you can see that you have a lot of information on the left of who's online at the moment in the Skype communication session. Some pictures possibly, optionally coming off their webcams. And you could have several all going at once. Okay, so that's another also key point. The enterprise versions usually can handle bigger loads. They're encrypted. They're usually hosted in the company. And another extension is now web conferencing is a further extension where I could actually have classes and that kind of thing on. So I added this more just to level set us. We think of social networking services as social software, and it somewhat is. It's basically personal social networking software like Facebook and Google Plus are used for consumer posting of social media, basically. Now, the professional software networking, social networking, there are actually two I found out there. Obviously, we know about LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is one method of professional or enterprise social networking where I'm trying to find other people in other companies who I need to socialize with to maybe work together with. And then there's another one out there called Yammer. I didn't name it. And their motto is, I just looked for it, right, to have something. And their motto is connect your company. And the difference between Yammer and LinkedIn is across companies and across everybody, while Yammer, they advertise their big thing is within your big company only. Okay. Does that make sense? So the point here is social software can be used to collaborate, work together on projects, build information, and it could also be used for networking, could be used to help find groups, work together for contacts, and taking your existing relations and build better work teams. So let me just raise one quick example that I raised when I basically taught 1 year at St. Edward's, and I basically presented this. Let's say we had to work on a project, okay? And this is what I raised to the class. And the project, I know I've been given this project at work, and I have to work on the project. And I know that a lot of my fellow workers have been using our social software, and are already in the communities and groups and everything. And I know that I'm going to have to do this remotely because some of the people may not, or are going to be either on vacation or they may not be around. Okay, so what can I do first of all to find the people I need to work on this project with me? Any ideas? Excuse me? Right. So I start searching through the communities I'm in, and I search for people I search the profiles for people who have that interest or that skill that I need for my work group. Right? All right. What about now that I want to start scheduling work assignments and I think I need to create some way of managing this as a project? What would I use then? I could, but I want to also be more schedule-oriented and item work assignment-oriented.
SharePoint?
Well, that's the major software group.
Oh.
I'd use activities.
Oh.
I'd start creating these work assignments and then create them as activities and then assign them to people I found in my group. But to do that, I actually have to create the group. I actually skipped over that. So I would create the group from the people I found, and I would need to start communicating with them in real time. They may be in some other country, or they may be working from home, or what. How would I do that? Well, it's instant messaging. Instant messaging. So I start using instant messaging to start communicating with them. I'd maybe create an instant messaging meeting and start scheduling those meetings. Okay? And then I might want to keep either some form of way of tracking it and let them put their own additions into the tracking information, and that would be what you suggested? Wiki, right. So I create the wiki, and I divide up the work items into the tables in the wiki and let them have it at it basically inside the wiki. Okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Wiki, now I know that you were talking a little bit about microblogging. Is that right? Microblogging?
Well, yeah, that's a form of communication.
That would be part and parcel, I think, of the wiki. I mean, I can see wiki and microblogging.
Think of wiki. Maybe I went a little too fast.
I guess what I'm trying to say is kind of you work together with wiki and.
Well, I might have went a little too fast for wiki, and I don't think I have an example of that. Think of a wiki as a way that we can quickly create a web page together to share our information. And we could usually do that. We like to do that as tables usually because it's the easiest way to quickly format something. But we're actually creating a web page where we're helping to provide information quickly that we could share with each other and then maybe provide it to other people.
Right.
So think of it that way as a way to co-develop a web page. Think of it that way.
As a teacher, I could just see this being implemented in the classroom.
Right.
You know,
Right.
group projects that are so, emphasized these days. Anyway, go ahead.
Yep, that is. Yeah, there are classes where that some social media aspects are used to create the class and develop the class together. Yeah. Actually, one could actually argue that the earliest form of social media might be thought of as maybe like using email. You know, email is a form of social media. But the problem with that is we just keep sending information out. It's sort of a unidirectional thing, and then they may reply back to me. It's hard to keep track of it. It's hard to archive it. And that's why people who use new social media, social software, they actually let the social software system keep track of it. I try not to use email at all anymore, except the system itself will put out email alerts to the people when updates are done and things like that. Okay. Any questions?
Wouldn't you really say the old bulletin board systems are probably the earliest form of social media?
Right, that's true, and they were a form of either a blog or forum. They were either one, depending on, and that was the original concept.
Almost, the bulletins are almost like microblogging.
Right,
They're
right,
just a form of microblog.
right. And that's why I use the example of the wall. The wall is a microblog too. The technical name would be a microblog, but they call it the wall. Right.
So some of the applications blend the two, or you're saying one is social software, one is networking, and they're separate?
Basically, because the networking, you could think of it as more as the, let me go back here maybe, the primary idea of the networking is help to bring people together with a common goal. And that is one of the points of creating communities in your social software. But usually when we talk about professional social networking, it's more to help you introduce yourself, like be at the meet, you know, as if you're at a party or something. I need to find people, bring them together, and share information. But it's not as closely knit as a community would be or a group would be in social software. In social software, I eventually want to create a group where I know these people work on this and these people work on that, or they're in my department or they're in my company. So it's a more bonding together for projects or work assignments, that kind of thing. And the big difference actually I could think of also is with groups and communities in social software, I could set privileges. I could say only these people in this community or group are allowed to see this information, or only the people in this group are only allowed to make modifications or put additions into the blog or the wiki, that kind of thing. So I have more control over the...
Kanban? Is Kanban just a methodology that uses the wiki method and so forth? Are you familiar with Kanban?
I'm not familiar with Kanban, but a lot of these are the main design concept techniques that are originally started and then eventually moved on to other platforms. Okay. And so it's going to be one of these. These are the technical names, you know, the forum, the blog, the wiki. Everybody has their own names for these things. You know.
Thank you.
Activities would be in Facebook, it's events, and that's starting to get a lot of currency. People are inviting other people to events, and those are showing up more and more.
Well, I've never used events in Facebook, but activities, I've used the one in IBM, for instance, activities in IBM, and I could be like a mini project manager for my group, and I could start assigning deadlines and dates on it, and it will alert me if you missed your date, if you haven't put the results in yet, and it could build tracking results for the event owner, basically. So it's more of a project management kind of thing, but more for team project management. Well, I think events on Facebook are more personal stuff, so it's not as restrictive, and you know. And especially, I need to again keep it very confidential to the people in my group who've been put into this activity list.
Do you have an example of activities that you can example that?
One example was I was involved with a team project also for a class, and our activities were scheduled based on when we thought different units would be created, and the different sub-activities were like the labs or the presentation material, and when I would have it reviewed, that kind of thing. So those were all sub-activities, but the primary activity for me would have been to create this unit in that class, and then above that was for everybody in the group or team, they each had their own activities to get the class done. And the person who was the project manager basically assigned these activities out. And another good thing about it was a template could be created, and then the owner of the activities or the project manager can just replicate it out to everybody in the team. He doesn't have to keep doing it over and over again, the same stuff.
I meant that, was there like a actual, something that looks like activities, the dashboard for activities, or?
Well, yeah, the individual products from the different companies have different ways of representing how you create activities, that kind of thing. But yeah, they would put out a web tool, again, that helps me to create the template or the actual activities, either me or for people in my group. So it's all done through software on the web.
What's one example of a tool that you've seen?
My experience is with actually IBM Connections. It's just built in there. So I go into I have a front end, and I go in and I say, okay, now I want to work with activities. I create the group, and then I click on the group. Up comes the diagram showing the members of the group and the hierarchy. And then I say, I now want to create activities in the group. It helps me build the activities visually right at that point.
So if the SWAT team wanted to do this, so they could create, like on Skype for Business or something, they could create a group and put down their SWAT team goal activities that they have to do, and then each member would be informed as to whether or not they had reached those goals.
Well,
Could you do that?
not Skype for Business, because Skype is a messaging and
I thought
conferencing.
it was up there with connection. Oh, what would
It's
be
SharePoint.
SharePoint.
Right,
Oh, okay. So
SharePoint.
you could create a SharePoint.
Right.
And Leap to
connected,
Success
right.
is based on SharePoint, so they
Right.
manage their projects that way.
Right.
There's another really good tool that you get free for small business or for small groups called Slack that allows you to do a lot of that.
That doesn't seem like a good name for something that was big,
They got really cool ads.
Yeah. Yes. All the concepts I mentioned here can be individually found either in open source screen. I gave some of them, for instance, or together as a social software package. And the difference being what kind of aids you want and was it supported by a big company or not. But everything I talked about here can be found as individual products on the web.